So, welcome everybody to this podcast number 41. I am so excited to have Mo Bartley with me today. So, we're going to have a fun time, jump into this podcast and enjoy our show. So, Mo Bartley, welcome to
Hi,
Running Strong Mind Body Connection. I'm so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here, Karen. We've talked about this for what, almost a year,
Almost a year.
trying to get our schedules to coordinate and,
I know,
pick a
right?
time when
I
we
know.
have a chance to get together. I wish we were in person, but since you're in Flagstaff and I'm in Auburn, this is also awesome. So, yeah, and you're sitting in snow and I'm finally sitting in some sunshine. So it's good.
I know it's just been crazy. The weather's just been insane. But before we start this, Mo, I want you to share a little bit about yourself so people who don't know you will get to know you, and then they're going to learn more about both of us as we expand into this awesome podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hi everybody. My name is Mo Bartley. Karen and I connected through the running world, like so many of my dear friends. I started running almost 40 years ago, and I kind of did everything backwards. I didn't have running in high school and college, so I'm dating myself right there. So you will understand that I am getting up there. It's all good. I'm embracing it. I've been in denial for a while with this big birthday coming up, but it's all good. So, at 30 years old, I started running, and at 30 was I had moved from Southern California. I had grown up down in Southern California, even though I was born on the East Coast. I was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and my folks moved our family out to the LA area. I grew up in Chatsworth, actually, same area as Val Kilmer, as was the big headlines this week. Him and I went to the same high school. However, I was a few years older than him. Um, but anyway, there was very, very little sports going on for us girls back in those days until Title IX finally came back and came through in 1973, which I was graduating high school that year. And, as far as going to college, I went to college, I got my degree, I had to work hard. My parents were, hey, you get your schooling done, you get out in the real world and you work your butt off, which I have done continuously. With that said, I'm very grateful for my parents. They were very strong, they were independent, they let me think for myself, and they were, they had requirements of me. So, anyway, I hope I've lived up to all of that. But anyway, after college and stuff, I ended up getting married for a very short period of time. And once that marriage dissolved, I had already moved up to Northern California. Northern California was the best thing that I ever did. I was involved with the horses. That's kind of how that took me into the running world, also, because once I moved up to cool California and Auburn area, I got involved with a lot of the endurance riders. And my very first exposure to Western states was working the river crossing down at Ruckatucky. And the horses at that time had the aid station down there. And I was so amazed. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And my little brain was going, well, if these people can do it, I can do it. And I had a lot of encouragement from all the wonderful folks that I had been riding with and getting to know up here. And as a lot of you know, or maybe a lot of you don't know, Auburn is the home of Western states.
Yep.
With that, Karen and I have been involved with the race forever and will continue to do so, probably until the day we go. Who knows. The history there. I was very, very fortunate. I started running in the 80s. I kind of jumped into it backwards, like I've done a lot of things in my life, but that's okay. I started into the ultras. I didn't run track and cross country as a young person, but I did get into the ultra scene, and it just opened up my world. I also jumped into the ride and tie scene because once I started running, I still had a horse. And of course, I was doing two things that I totally loved, which was riding and running. And that went on for several years also. And I had fabulous partners out there. Ride and tie, for any of you who don't know what that sport is involved, it's two runners and a horse. Of course, you want to utilize your horse as much as possible because they're the strong one with the four legs under us.
Right.
So and what a fun, back in those days, oh my gosh, we went all over with the ride and tie. And, ride and tie is still around for any of you interested. We always have a ride and tie event over here in Cool, and that event's been put on now for umpteen years. I can't even remember how many years they've been doing that one, and they still have a big national ride and tie also, which was always super fun. And those events were held all over California and sometimes out of state and the whole 9 yards. So quite a following, just as the endurance riding, as everybody knows, with Tevis and the 100 mile there. Tevis is initially how Western states got started.
Right.
So, we're all very, very connected. And I will say, this community up here, we share the trails with everybody, the horses, the runners, the hikers, the mountain bikers. We have learned to get along for the most part. There's still a little discrepancy out there now and then, but we've really all tried to make the best of it and share what we have in our big backyard. And my gosh, our trails are some of the most fantastic trails ever nationally. I mean, I've raced all over the country and stuff, and there's been some other amazing, amazing trails that I've run in, but I always come back to Auburn because this is where my heart is. So, and it always will be.
Yeah.
No Hands Bridge is very special to me,
Yeah.
that and Karen too, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, at Western States, we finally made it to No Hands Bridge,
Right.
the barn is in sight. So anyway, but going back through all that, I was in the medical career for almost 40 years. So I did a lot of caretaking. I had a great career. It's a profession that taught me a lot and opened up my eyes. I had great mentors with that. I love taking care of my patients, and I still get to see some of my patients, which is great. A lot of them I run into at the gym or, shopping or whatever it happens to be. So anyway, it was really, really important. And I can't thank all of my bosses down there. I was at the same surgery center for, 30 years, so it was at that point in time, it was a very tight knit family also. And they supported me on all of my crazy endeavors,
Right.
so it was awesome, so I'm still in contact with a lot of folks from there, but, a lot of us have gone in different directions, which happens, in life. So
Right.
anyway, yeah, I have been married to my husband, Brian Hacker, now for almost 24 years. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Right.
Um, Brian was an amazing runner too. And we met through running. Norm Klein back in 1997 pulled us both into a big 50-mile championship down in Houston, Texas called Sunmart. And a lot of you will remember that if you get a lot of runners on this podcast. He kind of made his move, and he was living in Bloomington, Indiana, and I was out here, and 6 months later, here we are. So it's been awesome. And Brian and I work together. We coach together. Brian's been my right-hand man. I'll go into this a little bit more, but I've worked for Fleet Feet downtown for almost 20 years. And 19 years ago, we developed a trail running program. And this program has been amazing. It has been so much fun. I continue to do it after I retired from my medical career and all that. I meet the best people. I can't tell you how much joy it has brought into so many lives. And my folks start off, it's a short distance program. Well, we have two distances. We call it long distance and short distance. Long being we're training for 3 races that we put on. Trail races, and those trail races are shorter in distance. Our one coming up in May is Dirty Secrets, and we've got a course of 10 miles, and then we also have a shorter course of right under 6. So my folks are geared to become like, okay, do they want to run the 10 or the 6 miler? Lots of fun. We meet twice a week. Wednesday night is their hard workout. And I can't tell you how fun it is to see 90 people out there doing hill repeats and putting smiles on their face and working their butts off. So anyway, I have continued with the program. It's a fabulous, retirement job for most of us. My crew is great. Fleet Feet's great. We've all had so much fun together. So, and I hope to continue that as long as I can. So anyway, getting back to my husband, that's what him and I do together. And, life goes on and we're both still running, and I love to garden, and we both love to travel. So, things are evolving as we've both gotten older with all of this. But anyways, so is that enough about me? Is it all
That was a great synopsis about you. So thank you so much for sharing that.
combined? Yeah. The last
Um,
crazy
so
years.
I know I'm gonna go back to even like when we met, and then I started running with Mo. For me, it was just so amazing to be able to run with you because you're so fast,
Well, I used
and
to be fast.
well, you're still fast, and I didn't realize that you didn't do anything in high school or college, and I didn't either. I didn't even start running until I was in my 50s, late
Oh, wow.
40s.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I never knew how to run.
Uh-huh.
There's a style to that. And I was telling my brother, I was like, I don't know how to run. We're
Mm-hmm.
just doing this movement, and that sort of morphed into so many things. But I know you've set some good records out there, and you've had some amazing races in the 100-mile world.
Mm-hmm.
And then now this is just from our conversation sharing, you kind of let that be its own era, and then stepping into what 5K, 10Ks here races that you're killing.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that we talked about the other day was the fact that you and I both are up there in age and how we're killing it.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
usually look at, the Olympians, and they're young, and you look at the high school people and the college people, they're young, but then you don't hear about them later. But
Right.
I believe for us, we started a little bit later. We started, later in our life, me a little bit late, a lot later than you, but
Mm-hmm.
we're still together. We're still holding it up.
Yeah.
Our bodies are
Yeah.
just still performing at the top peak of our ability to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to me, that's just amazing.
Yeah. Me too.
I know doing the number of 100 milers I've done, and then I took on the back-to-back hundreds, and the
Mm-hmm.
mindset that goes with that, and the dedication that with that. But there's a combination, and a lot of what the podcast is about is that mind-body connection. But it was the ability of the body to recover.
Right. Right. And recovery is so essential. And
Huge.
especially as we've gotten older. Our bodies were so, well, I just remember the resiliency that I had when I was a younger runner, and, doing back to back 50Ks, or, back to back 50, that I could get away with back then.
Right.
Now it's all changed, and I'm okay with all that. I've had to explore different options, and Brian has been my coach also for all these years. And, so we've kind of gone through all these different steps. You're, a young runner at 40, and then all of a sudden you become an older runner at 50. And then all of a sudden you're going through menopause, and you're dealing with a lot of stuff being thrown at you hormonally with all that, and still trying to keep your, body together with that. And right now, him and I are both exploring different ways to perform as a soon to be 70-year-old, which, God, when I was 40, I never thought I'd be running when I was 70. That's an old person.
But I mean, that's amazing because you have so many people who in their younger years were super fast and winning all this stuff, and then have that expectation
Mhm.
when they get older.
Right. And
So the blessing on my part is I never did that. So no matter what, it's always a new adventure for me.
right. And I think that's awesome. But, I think what happens with folks, and from what I've noticed, and still being in touch with a lot of the people that were amazing runners back in the day, number one, history should not forget any of us back in the day with Western states and stuff like that. That I think, if anything, the young people can still learn from us, and they're going
Right.
to get old too. they're going to age. And are they going to go back and say, when their elite racing days are over, are they still enjoying their runs? Are they still
Right.
putting a pair of running shoes on and putting a big smile on their face and going out and smelling our roses out here, whatever it happens to be. And I found that a lot of folks cannot handle slowing down and being okay with that. Like, I was asked at one race recently, like, how can you just put a number on and run for fun? I'm like, I run for fun no matter what. But I said, I'm not as fast as I am, or, I don't know what my performance level is going to be like today, and I was running for fun at this race anyway. And did I have a good race? Yeah, I had a really decent race. I wasn't, was it a little bit slower? Yeah, it was, but, it was really cold out. My body doesn't function as well in the cold as it used to. But I had so much fun. I got to visit and carry on a conversation to some degrees with people, which is always great.
Right,
But
right.
yes, I can definitely run for fun. And the less pressure, it's like, hey, what a relief, Now, eventually this year, I will go back into racing. I've been with a women's team from the Bay Area for over 25 years now. I race with the Impala girls over there. The beauty of my team is a lot of us have aged up. So a lot of us have been on the same team for umpteen years, and here we all are. So I'm joining our 70-year-old team this year.
Nice.
I'm so looking forward to it. And I'm kind of the one in between. Like, I've got my 60-year-old team, that I raced with for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I go into the 70s, but I had already raced with a lot of my 70-year-olds who were 60 or 50-year-old back in the day. So we're all trying to navigate this crazy, aging process. And I think several of us have been doing really pretty good with it.
Yeah.
It's really encouraging. I watched,
Right.
I remember when I was like 63 or 4, we were all down at a big national championship in San Diego. And damn, those 70-year-olds were giving them hell out there. It's awesome to see that. So, and it always has encouraged me to look up to them. And I hope a lot of women look up to me and go, well, if Mo can do it at this age, I'm going to continue, and I'm
Exactly.
going to, take care of myself and be able to perform at a good level. So yeah, it's good stuff. And, Karen, you and I, we have longevity, and so many folks don't get it.
Right.
Not that they don't get it mentally, but they're not able to run as they've aged. So hopefully
Well,
they.
I want to interject here
Mhm,
because there's something that came to my mind when you even came up with the number of 70. There's a inner like judgment on that on ourselves
mhm.
because it
Art.
it kind of shakes up that 70
Uh-huh.
mindset. And it's such a quiet thing because I was raised with a mom who believed 40 was super old. Don't do anything, just stay because you're going to hurt yourself at
Oh God.
40.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but there's that inner hidden voice in our head that's like, oh, 70. And we
Hmm.
have a social stamina around that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to challenge everybody who sees this on YouTube. Do either of us look like, does Mo even look like she's close? She looks like she's close to 50.
Oh wow.
You
Yeah. I've
know,
seen
it's
some definite changes.
but that's our own judgment on ourselves. But
Right.
but it's
Right.
also the stigma, the social stigma, the
Hmm.
social um yeah, the world thought process around, well, 70. And if you
Yeah.
visualize a person who's 70, they're standing in line at the pharmacy, or they're
Hmm.
hunched over at the grocery store, or they're and
Yeah. They're
so
tottering, with their
it's the
walker.
ability though that you had a passion when you were younger, and you're accepting where our life is going today in that whole humanly aging process. And then how are we navigating this next step?
Hmm.
And how do you, because you also brought up the word fun.
Hmm.
And the more we have fun in 60, 70, 80, 90, 110, well,
Hmm.
115, we're walking around the track with our walkers. But
Yeah. Karen and I have it all planned out. Somebody's going to have to mark the track for us, but we will be there.
well, even in the daylight, they had to bring the flashlight so we could make sure we
Yeah.
don't
There you
trip
go.
over anything. But even so, let's tap into that longevity and the mindset around that, and how we can bring fun into it and still do what we like to do without judgment.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And that's a hard thing to do. I caught myself this year thinking, what the heck? Well, the passage of time is so fast. And I will tell everybody, my 60s have gone by faster than
Yeah.
any of my other decades, any of it. And there was a couple of years there that were very challenging. I had some health concerns. I had to have major surgery again. I'm like, God, how many surgeries in my life do I have to have? Well, hopefully, no, I had another surgery this year. What am I talking about? You develop things as you get older. But anyway, I've always been fine afterwards, and I've always gotten right back to my running. And I think mentally, that is so important to go, oh yeah, there's life after, having health issues, and being strong mentally and physically always helps you. The outcome is always much better than if you hadn't been doing anything. But,
Right.
getting back to this whole 60 thing, like I said, time flew. It flew, and so I'm thinking, oh my God, I really had to kind of like wrap my head around the whole like 70 thing. And, I laugh because all my friends that I run with are younger. And, Karen's only a year younger. So
Hey,
some of them are
I'm
like
younger.
20 years younger, and they're like, they're going through a whole different phase in their life right now. But it's always great to, be able to talk about that, or they're raising children, or they're doing other things. And so, that keeps us young also, as far as that goes. But I realized that I had to stop being in denial about the 70 thing. I really thought, screw that. I'm okay with it. I'm healthy, I'm fit, I have a fabulous life. So what is there to be afraid of? Well, there's always the unknown. And I think health is huge. We have to keep ourselves as healthy as possible. And, a lot of people are going to go, well, how do you do that? Well, by moving, it's huge. Everything I've read anymore with the aging, you've got to keep moving. You've got to keep strong. People lose their strength in their core and their legs and their upper body. So you've got to start ahead of time and start working in the gym and cross training and running, and trying to keep that all in balance with everything, just like we've done all of our lives. Karen and I both worked. We weren't, little spoiled athletes that got to just run and play and have massages and, go, oh, okay, where am I going next? No, I was in the OR, I was in clinical. I was working 40 to 50 hours a week. And sometimes I'd get out and Brian and I would hook up after a long day at work and get another 10 miles in, and then get home, shower, eat something, and drop into bed and go, here
Right.
we go. We're doing it all over again. But
And
I
a lot
look
of
at,
people deal with that. They deal with it
yeah,
as still working, and it's amazing how we can. Well, there's two scenarios here. The first one is we make it work. I mean, I would be up
yeah.
early. I'd be up at 3:30. I'd be on the
Mm-hmm.
bike by 4:30 to be at the pool at 5, and then be at work at 6:30 to be at my desk at 7,
Oh, yeah.
and then run at lunch, and then you figure out how to bring it all in, and then there's that turning point of retirement.
Right.
And
Right.
then we lose that structure, we lose that
Yeah.
continuity of our life. It has to be so this way. But then if you look at it, that's also very stressful.
Yeah.
And so now how do we navigate into this? And also the idea that, oh, we're getting older and we get more settled, but that's even more important as we get older.
Mm-hmm.
It's more important no matter if you're male or female. It's more
Excuse me.
important you start moving because we were so active when we were younger. We don't think about that. But now
No.
we've got to think health is the number one, it's going to be the number one thing to our longevity. It's
Right.
so important that we stay healthy. Well, healthy doesn't mean you just go out there and walk every now and then, but we also have to take care of what we eat. We
Mm-hmm.
have to manage our mindset. Are we under stress all the time? Are
Right.
we sitting and having the time with ourselves to learn more about who we are in life?
Mm-hmm.
But it's taking care of the overall well-being of ourself.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so in my teachings, I talk about how the whole being is about our spiritual, our physical, our intellectual, our relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and our emotional well-being. And that creates that overall sense of being. But the physical is, yes, get up, and how are our bones going to get strong, stay strong?
Mm-hmm.
It's lifting weights or walking,
Yeah.
every single day. So I know I've shared this with you before, Mo. There's a 99-year-old lady who lives down around the corner from me in Auburn
Oh,
who
that's right.
walks
You have talked
every
about her.
single day. Now, the
Yeah.
only reason why she carries her canes,
Hmm.
only reason is because just in case
Yes.
she
Yes.
falls, just in case. She
And
doesn't need them, but
no, but that's being smart, you know?
they're so clear on her mind. But the fact is, just like she gets frustrated if she can't go work out.
Right. Right.
Okay, folks,
Oh, yeah.
99.
Yeah, that's just amazing. I've
Yeah.
got my little mom who's 94, almost 95, and she walked every day and she's still walking. She doesn't walk quite as far.
Yeah.
She is not using, a cane or a walking stick, although I've talked to her about that. But, she's still got a little vanity about her that, nope, I'm walking, I'm using my own. And she's always done that. She's always been so active, with that. And, as you start getting up there, you develop health problems and stuff like that. And, I mean, how many more years do any of us have left? But at that age, you're kind of like going, oh my God, I got to enjoy every day. So, she's always been such a positive influence in my life and so
That's very
encouraged
cool.
me to get out
Yeah.
there. She worked while she was raising two kids. My dad traveled all the time. My dad died at my age 30 some years ago. So mom's been, by herself and so independent. And once again, she's a giver. She always, volunteered to teach young kids how to play golf. My mom was an amazing golfer. She did that. She looked into various other things. And then her last volunteer was over at the USO at the airport, helping military people and, doing all that. I mean, she's always been somebody who's always had a purpose and who's always giving. And I think that's huge for all of us.
Huge for all of us. And it's
Hmm.
very important, especially I've seen so many people who work their whole life,
Right.
40 years under stress,
Hmm.
and plan for retirement, but they really don't know what retirement looks like.
No, they have no idea.
And then they're gone in 5 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so
Classic
even
case of
as
my dad. Yep.
and that can be related to being an elite runner or a fast runner or accomplished runner as we're younger, but as we age in life, it's still the ability to go out and have fun and
Hmm.
enjoy what we used to love to do in our younger years.
Yeah.
And so it's
Absolutely.
super important when we make this transition in life is just to, like you said, find a new purpose, find a new avenue of where you can be a part of the community
Hmm.
and building those relationships and building that overall well-being for yourself in a different fashion.
Right.
Because we don't just grow up, have a job, work, okay, we're gone. No.
No, it doesn't happen like that.
It
You
doesn't
know,
have to happen like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going back to the young girl situation. They have so much to choose from now. I
Right.
mean, we were kind of limited back in the day. What do you want to be? Well, gosh, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I still don't know what I want to be. There's more out there. But there's so much opportunity for women. We just have to make it happen for ourselves. And of course, we're up against a lot of hard times with stuff, but we're resilient and we're very, you find the right group of women and you find how supportive we all are. And I love encouraging the young ones with that. I coached high school track and field and cross country for 16 years also, on top of being medical. I don't know, I don't know how I did all that either, but
I
it
know,
it all
right?
worked. It all worked. But I'd laugh because one of my little girls we'd be going to a big meet or something, and she'd get off the bus crying. I'm like, what's wrong? Oh, my boyfriend and I broke up. I go, get back on that bus. You're going to have the best race of your life. You're going to put all that negative energy into that race. And by damn, she did. So fun stuff like that. It's always good.
Yeah.
But oh, God, yeah, lots of different things. As we move on
Right,
up the
right.
road. So yeah, but good stuff.
Yeah, it is important and having but also too having that positive mindset of knowing being curious into life.
Hmm.
Being curious what's next as opposed to oh my God, I'm 70, what's going to
Yeah.
happen?
Oh, what's
It's,
around the corner? I'm
it's like
scared.
being curious. I am curious. I'm really for me I'm really curious. How long am I going to be running hundreds? I am
Right.
super curious on still that adventure and then even taking on this next adventure when this podcast airs.
Hmm.
I would have already completed 250-mile race.
That's right. And that's going to be a great adventure for
I
you.
know.
I think you're going to find out more and more stuff about yourself. I
Yeah.
think you'll grow more from that. I know I wish I wasn't working with everything. I'd come out and, pace you and help you. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be awesome, and I've
But
got
see,
like,
if we stay stuck, I mean, the curiosity, okay, so I'm going to be 69 in June.
uh-huh,
And if I looked at that going, well, okay, I'm 69, I shouldn't be doing this stuff, but it's still
right.
stay curious in life of what else, what more is there for you now. You don't
Hmm.
have to run 100, you don't have to run 250, you don't have to do, you can do a 5K, 10K, but be curious in whatever you choose in life.
Yeah,
Be open to the
absolutely.
changes. Be curious because if we stay small after especially after we retire and you just start doing nothing, go be
Hmm.
curious in life and in the society and connecting with any way you can. Volunteer for something,
Oh, yeah,
but keep your
absolutely.
life purposeful and
Mhm.
let's change this world one way or another, one
Yeah,
person at a time to
yep,
bring in that curiosity, the positive, the emotional connections that we can have with people.
right. It's so,
And I'm just so blown away of the people I meet just through my own journey of running. Holy cow, I met Mo.
yeah, I know we did, and here we are, so it was great. And we had the best connection immediately. It wasn't like a friendship that, takes time and nurturing, which we are, but, and there are times where we don't see each other,
Right.
but it was just boom, we hit it off, and we've always had great conversations, and, we've also had fun out there running. And
We
I've
always
introduced
have great
Karen to new people.
conversations, and I always call my runs, well, this is my tempo run, and
Yeah.
Mo's running easy today, and it's my tempo run.
And we've done a couple workouts together when, I've been out there, working with you a little bit and helping
Yep.
you and, working on form, which is also another whole part of this
Oh, you
thing.
did that when I was training
Yeah.
for the Ultraman. It's like, okay, you guys
Yes.
want to come run my
Hmm.
arm? Mo's behind me. She goes, okay, do this with your feet, do this with your arms, do this. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh my God. That's why I said earlier, I never learned how to run.
Right.
I
Right.
never learned the form. I never learned and so a lot of times I would just like watch people. I'm like, well, let me try that.
Hmm.
But then when you have Mo in your back ear, Karen,
Hmm.
your arms go like this.
Yeah. 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 Karen,
Pick
quit
up your
acting
feet
like a
a little
dinosaur.
bit.
Yeah, little helpful hints all the way, and I have, a lot. So I've coached so many people through the last 20 years with everything. But a couple of my folks, so they're, a lot of my folks graduated from, running short distance into running the ultra scene, which I love seeing out there. And they're like, I have this voice in the back of my head going up hills, use those arms, so yeah, it's
Mo
important.
said, I'm
Mo
going to go
said,
faster.
and they're
And
like,
now I've got to take that same concept and use it with those poles.
right. I know. That's going to be an interesting, scenario with all that too.
Right,
That
right,
takes
right.
practice
It
with
does take
everything.
practice, and
Hmm.
I'm practicing. I'm practicing. I'm practicing. So,
Right. Good girl. That's awesome. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah, no, here we both are going into the next big phase,
I know. And so, I want listeners to take with this and look into the future here, look ahead, because Mo and I are going to be doing some themes every quarter. And this theme was, one really getting to know Mo and talk about kind of tap into that world of longevity
Mhm.
because we're there and let's make it fun.
Well, and the good thing
Um,
is there's more to come.
I
So,
know.
it's great.
So for the end of this session, Mo, I always ask what's one, and you've given, oh my gosh, you've given so much, but is there something else in your little toolbox of one last comment of advice for the listeners?
You know, uh, I probably could come up with something, but one thing that I've learned through all the years is we never know what shoes somebody else is walking in, and dealing with so many, patients through the years, so many, clients, kids, the whole nine yards is, just really taking a moment to try to understand other folks, and yeah, we all have our bad days, but one of my big things with my group out there when they're working hard, it's like leave your stuff behind, your baggage. Don't bring your work problems, your marital problems, your kid problems out here to your workout. And it could be anything that you guys enjoy doing for fun. you need that time to just kind of, pull your head out of the negative and go into something. Yeah, this is hard, but damn, I'm enjoying it.
Right.
Nothing else is coming out. So, you got to leave some of that baggage at another road off, and just, turn your mind off to some of that. And I have to work at that too. When there's a problem or something like that, we've all got to be like, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to, whatever it happens to be, running has been our therapy forever. And so I think it's really, really important that everybody gets a chance to just kind of, chill out, for, lack of better words, just for their own good. It's so
Yep.
good up here, mentally and physically.
Yep. And I've had many of my clients from join my mental fitness boot camp because of that, because they go
Yeah.
out there. The whole idea is that they spend an hour getting de-stressed and
Hmm.
then enjoy the run. But then think about that. It's great. It's a great thing to do. It's a great energy release and whatnot. But then what are we doing for the rest 23 hours that we are under
Hmm.
stress?
Right.
So that's where so many people have joined that my boot camp on learning how to manage that stress throughout the rest of their day
Right.
and
Right.
bring that peace and joy into their whole day. But just think of it, even more fun you're going to have when you get starting your runs and your training,
Hmm.
as opposed to getting through all that stress and then enjoying it. How about if you just start off enjoying it because you came in there with joy and peace in your heart, as
Right.
opposed to the
I
stress
know.
that
I
you're
know.
trying to release. So
Yeah, it's so important for
it
all of us.
is important
Yeah.
because both of you and I know how the stress in the world is right now, and it's
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
important to.
Yeah.
It's really important, but we have the ability to choose for ourselves and manage our mind-body
Hmm.
connection and
Hmm.
create a life of joy no matter what's going on out there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
And staying off your phone is a good idea too. Take time away from that.
right. It's a good
That's
time.
become another world addiction, along with everything else that's out there. So,
Yep, yep,
yeah,
yep.
we have to, yes, we need to be, we need to be connected. We need to know what's going on, but God, everybody needs to take a break away from all that nonsense.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, crazy. It's
Because if you
inundating.
look at it, you guys, no matter what you have, you always have this moment.
Right. Right.
Right this moment now. It's this
Mm-hmm.
present moment. You always have just this present moment because the rest of it is either fear, worry, stress, or
Mm-hmm.
regret, guilt, but nothing
Yeah,
happens in the present moment. So right now, Mo, right in the present moment, we have nothing but fun and
I
joy
know.
going on.
Right. And that's a good, analogy with your running. You have to be in the moment. You
Yep.
can't predict what's going to happen 10 miles down the road or even a mile down the road. You have to stay in that moment. And I believe that was advice that my husband gave me back in the day, with running and training hard. And, when I have to say some of the hardest training times that I ever did was when I was training for the 100K for the World USA 100K team. And oh my God, the workouts he was putting me through and stuff. But he was always so like, you've got to be in the moment. Okay. Yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit. But, if you're not coming out here to run on a rainy night, your competitors are running. So do you want to give that up? Okay, I'll be there. But yes, stay in the moment with
Yeah,
everything you do.
that's true. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's amazing how things turn out, so try it.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. It really
So.
is. So, and Karen and I are hoping that we wear on you guys, and you want to see more of us.
So this is posted in May and then again in probably July, June or July. We'll come up with it. I'll let you guys know. But Mo
Yeah.
and I will be back on a new topic, a new conversation, and a new adventure.
Yeah. And who knows, we may be in the same room at that time,
That would be
It
fun.
works out. Yeah, it'd be great.
That would be a lot of fun. And
Oh
I should
yeah.
be in Auburn. So
I know. So we can make that happen, which would be awesome. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, good
yeah.
stuff. Good
Well,
stuff.
thank you so much, Mo Bartley. This was
Oh,
a
you're
lot of
so
fun.
welcome, Miss Karen. I have missed my running with you. So when you get back from well, no, when you get back from Cocodona, we'll get, we'll talk before that. But
We'll
yeah,
go for a walk.
yeah, yes, we'll walk. I'll take you out for a walk. Okay, come on. Recovery mode with everything. So no, it'll be great. And you'll have an amazing adventure out there. If anybody
I
can do
know.
this, you can.
I
So
know.
yeah, it'll be great. It'll be good.
Thank you, Mo.
Yep, you bet. Thank you, Karen. It's been awesome. So, yep.